Good morning and good afternoon for everyone who is watching. We are so excited to have Lindsay Bruce as our guest today. And before we get into Lindsay, just a really quick why we started, especially for those of you who are new to this forum. Leadership Now, we believe that every single person has a message, and this is our way to get other people's messages out. Tips, tools from mentors, role models, leaders out in our community. So if you know someone who'd be a fantastic guest, let us know. Next week, next Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we have Kate MacArthur, who will be talking, which is interesting because she's going to go right on to what Lindsay's topic is. She's going to talk about loving yourself. You are enough. And she is assistant coach for CSUB, so Bakersfield Women's Soccer. She's been in coach for over 12 years with the NCAAs and is so passionate about helping people understand their worth. So she's going to go right on along with Lindsay. So for those of you who are actually watching this on Facebook Live, I can't see any of your comments. So if you want to comment, you can definitely put it there. We'll respond afterwards. If you want to talk to Lindsay directly, make sure that you click on the Zoom link and then you come in. For those of you who are watching by Zoom, we like to make this interactive. There is a chat bar, a chat button. So if you actually make it default to panelists and attendees, you can put comments there. If you have questions for Lindsay, you can also put them there. But we like to challenge you because we like to make this interactive. So the back half of this, if you have questions or comments for Lindsay and you would like to have them, give them to her directly, put that in the Q&A and I will bring you in and we make it more fun. So with that, let's get going. Lindsay, oh my gosh. You know, when I met you, well, first and foremost, it was, I think Brian had gone through Bold and you're this little tiny thing. And he goes, I want to give Lindsay Bold for her birthday. Yeah. And you know, you're thinking this birthday present, you walk into Bold going, wow, what a birthday present.
Right.
And you are just this rock star. You're this little tiny thing, but you are a freaking dynamite. And I could not wait to have you on here just because of how big you are in life, but also how authentic you are. So before we dive into your topic, would you just, for those of people who don't know you, just introduce yourself.
I'm Lindsay. So my husband Brian and I have been married for 15 years. We have 3 kids. He had 2 kids prior to my marriage with him. They're 19, 18, and then we have a 14-year-old together. So we've been married 15 years. We've been married multiple times. We renew our vows very often. We like to do that. So that's super fun. I went to San Diego State, so go Aztecs, and graduated there with a bachelor's in communication. Started to pursue a teaching degree. Decided I could not work within 4 walls, that the world was way too big. So I ended up becoming a police officer for Oceanside, back in 2002. Mm. So back then, and was a police officer for 10 years, and then ended up leaving. And now I'm a personal trainer, group instructor, health and wellness coach, really teaching people how to just add nutrition to their lifestyle, not anything extreme, but just trying to change it in slow, gradual, so it will last forever.
So that's a little tiny bit, and there's a lot of history there. And your topic is proving myself led me to the bottom. Finding my worth helped me find joy. And people love the story, right? So here you are, you go to San Diego State, you have a bachelor's in communication, you get on the Oceanside Police Department. You were the first female canine officer.
Yes.
And you're there for 10 years. And then you leave to get into the health and wellness. But there's this huge gap. So why did you go into the police force, first of all? What led you there?
So my dad was a Secret Service agent, and I grew up and I wanted to be that so bad. So, I mean, I remember before I got my first tattoo, calling my dad and saying, oh my gosh, I heard you can't have a tattoo if you're in the Secret Service. What do I do? And he's like, you're getting a tattoo? No, you're not. But that's a whole funny story with my dad. but he traveled a lot for his job. So he was always gone, and my mom, had to pick up the pieces. And I knew if I wanted to be a mother, I didn't want to travel that much. So I decided to go into law enforcement in pretty much the community I lived in. I grew up in North County, so very familiar with Oceanside. Got hired with them, and that's kind of what started my journey with them. And during the academy, we had the San Diego Canine group came, and they were doing some demonstrations with their dogs, and I just got huge-eyed, and I loved it, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm gonna do this. And then when I found out that Oceanside had never had a female before, that was kind of just my, like, for 3 years, I'm gonna work my butt off so I can get that position, and I will be the first female canine handler. So that's kind of how I got into that. And my actual first conversation with my husband, he was a dog handler. So that was my first conversation, was like, how'd you get the dog? What do I do? What do I need to do to get this dog?
Well, first and foremost, you have to love dogs, right?
Yes. Yeah, I love dogs. We've had way too many dogs. It's almost embarrassing.
So you're all of what, 5'2"?
I lie and say I'm 5'2", but really I'm 5'1".
Okay.
Yeah.
Back when I say little itty bitty thing.
I was probably like 105 pounds back when I was trying out for the position, which was, like, looking back, crazy that I did it.
So how did you have to prove yourself? I mean, I can't even imagine, because when I look at, the police force, they're usually pretty big, and they're always in shape, which you are, but you're 5'1" plus.
Yeah, and I definitely knew going in that I would have to prove myself, especially to a male dominated industry. I remember during my probation period, one of my training officer wasn't there, and so I was put in a car with another male. I can't remember who it was, but I remember driving around the evening with him for my shift, and him telling me, I'm going to have to drive faster. I'm going to have to prove myself. I'm going to have to run faster, jump on people faster than just to prove myself. So they found I was a legit partner, which looking back is so sad that it had to be that way. So I think I went in, that was when I was in training, and I went in with that mentality that, like, I have to up my game. And every single day I was trying to find someone to arrest, trying to just do more than my male counterparts just to prove my worth.
Were there other female officers at the time with you on the force?
In our department, there were not very many. I was always pretty much the only female on my shift. I worked the graveyard shift, so if anybody needed a female person or officer to search somebody, it was always me called. Very few and far between female officers, so definitely spread thin, and it was rare if I had a couple extra females on my shift.
So did you ever feel like you fit in, or feel like you had proven yourself that you were one of them?
I got into officer-involved shooting when I was 2 months out of my training. So I felt like, it's almost like, okay, like, she's legit, like, she can handle herself. And a couple of other instances where I had to go hands-on and prove myself. So I think at that point, I felt like I had kind of created some type of, voice for myself that I could be proven to, help a situation. But I think my own personal belief in myself at the time is what made me continue to try to prove myself for my entire 10 years there. I felt like I was never reaching the finish line. There was always something else to achieve.
So when you talk about proving yourself led you to the bottom, and you were there for 10 years, was it within that time that led you to the bottom?
It was right about the 10-year mark that my son was in first grade. My dad was actually in a really bad bicycle accident, had punctured his lungs. He was on a ventilator. And the Sandy Hook shooting happened, where the school was shot up and an entire first grade class was killed. And that, for some reason, triggered something really deep inside my brain. As a police officer, you go to scenes that are the worst of the worst, and you might go to 4 or 5 in one night, where you're doing CPR on a 2-year-old, and then you're going to a guy that killed himself in front of a train, and then you're going to a domestic violence where someone shot somebody. So you never have time to process that grief. You never really have time to process what your brain saw. Your heart doesn't have time to process what your brain had seen. And so you just learn to stuff it down. And for 10 years, you learn just to, okay, that's done, like, period, go on to the next sentence. And when that Sandy Hook shooting happened, and I just had a lot emotionally going on with my dad and trying to help my mom through that process, plus raising my own family, working a full-time job, it just really triggered me. So I ended up taking a medical leave for almost, probably 9 months, where I had to go to therapy every week and see someone, was put on antidepressants. It was just weird. Like, all of the things I had seen for 10 years just started to bubble up and came from a deep place that I had almost forgotten about.
You know, it's interesting you say that, because we've worked with firefighters, police officers, even people within the military, within Bold, and across the board, what they all say is that when they're in the position for so long, they become numb. And what you said is you stuff it down, you stuff it, because you have to function. So there is a head knowledge, but you're protecting your heart, because I really believe as human beings, we are meant to love and to care. There's compassion. And yet you sign up for something and you're seeing all this, at times, yuck, right?
Right.
There's yuck. And so you're figuring out how to keep myself safe and just go, 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 go. Mm-hmm. And something happens, and this for everyone, there's a wake-up call. If we listen, there's a wake-up call.
Yeah.
And in that wake-up call, we have the opportunity and the ability to say, wait a minute. So when you had the wake-up call, what happened after that 9 months?
There's a big, during all this, I was journaling and writing, trying to express like everything that I had felt and seen. And there's like a month gap that I literally have no recollection of. I feel like I was in some stinking soap opera, like catatonic, person, where I can't even remember. I don't know how my kids were fed. I don't know how they got to school. My mom and dad didn't even know about it. It was almost like I was embarrassed to tell them I was going through this deep depression and anxiety. And it's almost like you lose sense of time. And finally, I had enough, and it was just, what am I doing? I'm wasting my life just sitting here like crying. And I think once you reach the end, I don't know. My husband said it best. He's just like, are you a fighter or a flighter? Like, you are a fighter, girl. Like, get up. Like, let's change this scenario. And it was like that. It was triggered. And it's like, okay, let's start the healing process. So that's kind of where I came out of it. And it's not like it was quick or anything, but it was that shift in mindset that it was enough. I didn't have to go back to work if I didn't want to. I can change my ending. And that was kind of the first step of my new life.
It's interesting when you say a fighter, there's two different ways of fighting, right? There's a fight, I'm going to prove you I can do this. I'm just going to power through, and I'm going to, put it on my back, and I'm just going to go. But then there's another fight to go, wait a minute. Am I doing it for me? Or do I have to continue to prove that I'm good enough, that I'm smart enough, that I'm worthy enough, and it goes back into our identity. Mm-hmm. Because you were on the force for 10 years, and there's an identity and there's a stigma that comes with being a police officer.
Yeah.
So was it easy? Was it hard to make the transition?
It's taken me almost 8 years now at this point, and I feel like I'm finally kind of stepping over that threshold to who I'm really meant to show up in this world as. I think there's bits and pieces along those 8 years that I definitely showed. My purpose is growing and building, but I don't think it's until you find your worth in yourself. Even that identity point. I remember we were doing my girlfriends and I put together this beer runners club so we could drink beer and run around town and go out in our like workout outfits. And when we ran into this guy who ended up being a gentleman that ended up staying with us actually down the road, and he was a pastor, and he was like, your identity is wrapped up in what you were, not who you are now. What did God make you now? And it was the biggest wake-up call, because it's like, oh my gosh, you're right. Because when you're in that world, that is your identity. You're working with those people night and day. your days off are different than the norm. So, for instance, we had Sunday, Monday, Tuesdays off. Well, most of America doesn't have Sunday, Monday, Tuesdays off. So you end up hanging out with the same people you work with constantly, and you just stay in that bubble. So it's removing yourself, I think, from certain situations and really listening to your inner voice and the Holy Spirit, where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing.
So how did you tap into your self-worth? Like, how did you find it?
I started with enrolling myself in a nutrition program, and it changed my life because once you start eating better, removing the junk and the chemicals, your brain becomes clearer and you have more energy. So that was kind of my first step, was kind of cleaning up what I was eating, and not just what I was eating, but what was I surrounding myself with, and removing things out of my life that were dragging me down. I always call it like the suitcase. We're all carrying, like you were talking about, we carry this burden around everywhere. And it was like starting to take stuff out of that backpack and leave it down and not picking it back up, not coming back to it. And it's hard. It's a daily practice, and it's a daily reminder. But the more I would let go of things, the more the doors opened in front of me and I was able to step through.
Were you ever really scared?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there was definitely tons of just, nights of tears and what am I supposed to do with my life? I thought in my head, I had this, I'm going to be here for 25, 30 years and then I'll retire and then I'll go about my life. And then when a kink is thrown in, you just feel like you're not in control. And that's probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned, is to let go of control and just let it flow. And especially even during this year, 2020, it's like I had all these plans for my year. I was like, I'm doing this by the end of the year, I'm doing this. And no, I'm not doing anything. So literally it's one day at a time. But it also opens up your gratitude practice, your prayer practice, your meditation, whatever that stillness is for you. When you let go of that control and you just kind of sit with yourself, things start to flow, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, you and I were talking about that right before we went live, is that's the hardest place for people to go, is to be still. Because there's so much noise, there's so many distractions, and we're not even aware of what's happening, but we constantly numb, we constantly fill up, and to all of a sudden have it all taken away, and now we just get to be.
Yeah.
Well, we get to learn so much about ourselves within those times.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing. One of my girlfriends calls me a hummingbird because I'm like, ooh, I'll try this. I'll try this. And I mean, my list of certificates in the fitness world of what I've done is like, it's ridiculous. But now looking back at it, we're September now, 2020, I see I was busying myself so I didn't have to really sit with myself. Like, oh, if I just do this on the weekend, then I don't have time to work on myself. I always kept thinking knowledge is, the more I know, the better I'll be. But really, the more I knew about myself, the better I am. So yeah, just slowing down too, like you said, just to be in tap with who you are. One thing, it's always like, we all have a special hole in the universe to fill that only we can fill. And your hole is different than mine that I fill, even though we might be very similar, or your best friends might be very similar. We're all different and have our own people that we need to connect with and touch and engage with. So yeah, but it's sitting with yourself to find out, what is that identity? What is that hole that I, Lindsay, am filling in this universe?
So you take the certification class on nutrition, then what was your next step?
So I started doing personal training, and that it kind of fell right back into that whole, I have to be perfect. I have to prove myself that I'm the best, I can do the best. And it wasn't until I had a dream one night that I was going to start a business called ALY Warriors. And the ALY was for Always Love Yourself Warriors. So I thought that was my mission. I'm going to teach these women how to love themselves. I'm going to help them feel good. And it really wasn't. And I probably did that for 4 or 5 years. And it wasn't until I went to Bold, and that was my birthday present, like you were saying earlier.
Testing Brian out the first night.
I was like, my birthday I'm spending on a bunk bed, like a 2-inch mattress. Like, what is this? What is he doing to me? But it ended up being the best thing, because the message I learned there was, I don't think that ALY Warriors was for other people. It was not until I could love myself that I could help other people. And so ever since then, I think that was 3 years ago. My life has just completely changed, and the way I love other people, because I'm okay with myself. I'm not judging myself. I'm giving of myself, if that makes sense.
Well, I love watching you morph, so over the past 3 years, and just 3 years in November, is just to watch you just grow and to step in and to own it even more and more and more. And, so many times we think, okay, we hear people's stories, right? It's from here, the police academy, to, I now own my own business. I'm the head coach for Orange Theory. And people see where we're at now, but they don't see what's happening to get there. And we're still evolving.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we were talking about that earlier. It's like, I think I grew up with this mental picture that there was a finish line. And as soon as I get a career, as soon as I get a house, I get married, have kids, I've reached it. I've done it. But life throws you curveballs every day. So it's learning to adjust to that. And there is no finish line. We're always evolving. There's always lessons. And I think if we approach life like that, what is today, even what is this person trying to teach me? Even when my husband and I maybe get in an argument, or my kids, it's like, okay, what is the lesson behind this that I'm supposed to learn, they're supposed to learn, to help us evolve to be better human beings in the world?
Do you find yourself still fighting to prove yourself?
I think I'd be a liar if I said no, but I see so much growth. I see that I don't have to prove myself. I'll find myself in that pattern of like, oh, I got to be the best at this. And then I see that it's okay just to be me and show up how I am right now, because people will love you regardless of, if there is no perfection, and it's okay.
Well, the reason I asked you that, so many times it's like a hardwire. We're taught that, through our childhood, and it's reinforced by the things that we do.
Yeah.
And so because it's so hardwired, it's something that we have to become aware of and to acknowledge, not that there it is again. Oh, because I'm with you. I struggle with that as well. And I'm like, okay, wait a second. Someone gave me the biggest words of advice one time, and it just stuck with me. And you said it earlier, you be you and I be me.
Yeah.
And we're not meant to copy someone else, because as soon as we think, well, I need to be like Lindsay, or I need to be like Brian, or I need to be, we get caught in the trap of comparison. And the trap of comparison is fear, it's doubt. We're not even stepping into who we are meant to be.
Right. Yeah. Because we're so absorbed with everything else that's going on. Yeah. It's almost like you were saying, we're numb. We're numb to what we're supposed to be, because this is all the white noise going on in the background.
So 2020, you had a huge reset, and we all had a huge reset.
Yeah.
So what was your greatest lesson?
Just sitting with myself. It was the first time in my entire life, since I can ever remember, that I've slept in for like past 9 o'clock more than 1 or 2 days in a row. There was weeks we just took it slow, and the kids, we didn't have to run them around to sports or activities. We taught the kids how to play poker, and we played speed Uno, and it was just so fun. It was the best reset for me mentally, just to journal and be grateful for what we have, and give to others. I think giving is so important. To get away from yourself is to give to others. And just finding people in the community that we could give back to, who maybe have lost their job, or whatever devastation was going on during the COVID, even people who had sick relatives. It's just giving to other people. And I feel like that's one of the biggest things to get out of your own way, is to put someone else first in your life.
So true. So health and wellness, you get into that, and that's your passion. And you said something about it starts from the inside out. So how do you teach and fill your whole of the universe? How do you get that message out?
So I really believe in not only making your body strong, but when your body's strong, your mind is so strong. Lifting and gaining strength through weights, and even just through your food, I think makes such a difference in your life and changes. And just seeing people's growth, people who I work with personally just come in shoulders like, ugh. And as we progress and they just gain strength and they gain just even positivity with their own body image, it makes such a difference. And I feel like that's my whole is I really love helping people push past the limits they set for themselves. So everybody has their limit. They think they can't, go anymore. And I love to help people push out of that comfort zone and just try it. Just step a little bit over that line and try something new. And every single time they do it, the joy and the love for themselves grows even more.
Well, so you look at proving yourself. There's actually a plus in the lesson, because in proving, we actually get to blow past what we think we're capable of. But there's an unhealthy way too, right?
Yeah.
So it's really looking at that balance of what's the lesson and what's the trap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, so true. Yeah, because everything can be done to an extreme, right?
Oh yeah. And looking at you and how competitive you are.
And I am. It's like, it's crazy. I'm this competitive being, but then it's learning to tap into when it's time to pull it back and just be. And I think that comes through just sitting and being still and journaling and praying and just spending time with yourself. You learn so much about yourself, especially Americans. I feel like we busy ourselves with every little thing. So really tapping into who you are, who God made you be in this big old universe. It just changes things.
So what's your next step? Like what's your next, the dream or your focus?
It's really helping more people on a bigger platform. I love people and I love seeing people succeed. So it's really just helping push them, like I said, to their next limit, push them past those doubts and helping them in that arena, just helping them push past the fears they have and using my own message to help other people.
And I love your message. I put the one on Instagram stories with you with the dog and who you are now. And it's just, we all have stories. We all have, we were talking about this, our mess becomes our message. And it's not that we have regret. Everything we do in life helps us go to the next level, to the next level, to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. And everything I feel like is so synchronized. It's, you meet someone here that takes you here and the next step and the next step. And really it's just being open to go with it too and not be so closed off that other things can't come into your little circle and your bubble in life. It's being open and aware of things coming to you that you're supposed to be stepping into.
So if you could get a message out, and I have something that's just kind of stirring in me, and I know it's almost a rocky place to go, but at the same time, it's a good place to go because of what's happening right now. You have a different view within the police force, and there are great cops. They're absolutely amazing. I look at you and Brian, and I look at some of the other people I know and their hearts to serve, and they're bad cops. But it's just like anything. They're good leaders. They're bad leaders. They're good teachers. But there's a message. Do you find yourself wanting to help to heal the divide?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there's so much devastation right now. And if we could change that to loving and just hearing people's hearts, people don't listen to hear, they listen to respond. And so if we can just learn to listen with our hearts and not have that quick conversation right back, what is this person trying to tell me? Because everybody has a story. Everybody's been devastated in some way. We're so afraid of talking about our vulnerability in America that I feel like it's just like a big stop sign. And so nobody is open to share. Both sides of the equation have things going on, but it's up to us to listen before we respond.
So true. Well, and I just look at the divisiveness of our country. And we had Edward Powers on here. He was a retired lieutenant colonel for the Marine Corps. And even his view, we all have a different equation to the puzzle. Mm-hmm. And and I'm with you, just if we could stop and if we could pause and if we could look and we could seek to understand, if we could have the empathy to actually go, okay, how can I put myself in someone else's shoes to
Yeah.
really understand and not be so quick to judge? Because that goes right back into where you were, 10 years ago, going, wait a second, there's something not right. And if we could listen to the flag,
Right.
stop, but what is it about me? Right? Because it all comes back to there's something in us.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the saying that when somebody or something irritates us, they're actually holding a mirror up to us
Really?
to show us something that we're not willing to look at. Like we don't, it's a gift. There's something underneath there to teach us. What is that?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's looking at your triggers. If you're constantly triggered on something, what deep down, why are you triggered by that? Because a lot of times it's usually the same, might not be the same person, but it's the same message being sent by other people that's triggering you. So it's really getting in touch with yourself and saying, okay, why did this trigger me so bad? Why am I so upset over this? And figuring out what's the deep root of that. Because if we can get to the root of the issue, then we can heal the issue. So it's really working deeper than just surface level.
The root.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things, so my favorite flower is a sunflower, and I love it. And they call them hyperaccumulators because you can plant them and they suck the toxins out of the ground. At one of the spas I worked at, they actually planted this beautiful thing of sunflowers that was like gorgeous. I was snapping pictures like crazy, but really they were drawing, it had been a clay tennis court, and they were drawing all the toxins of that clay out so they could plant an organic garden. And I just thought, what a beautiful picture. Like, I want to be that sunflower in people's lives where you're just drawing the toxicity out of them and helping them find their true, like their sunflower, their wings, their growth, they're looking up towards the sun. So it's like, I wish we could teach people to find that inside themselves. What is toxic inside you? It goes back to the root thing to get rid of. So we get all of those toxins out of the soil, and we grow into what we're supposed to be.
I love that. Right now in Washington, we have so much smoke and haze. It's been here for a week. And I'm just like, I need a bunch of sunflowers.
Yeah, right?
Let's suck the toxins out of this air. Oh, I love that analogy. So I'm actually going to open it up. If you have questions or comments for Lindsay, and you would like to come in live, as I said, we love to make this interactive. Put it in the Q&A and we'll bring you in. If you have a question and you don't want to be brought in live, that's okay. I can't see you on Facebook Live, so if you're on Zoom, just put a question or comment on the chat and then I'll give it out to Lindsay. So for you, Lindsay, when you look at just life, do you have any regrets?
I don't have any regrets. I think everything that happens to you led you to this place you are today. The people who have come into your life, the different relationships you've had, I think it's all learning. It's a teaching point. And if you can learn that every person along the way has taught you something, you don't have the anger, you don't have the regrets at all. I mean, we've all done things in our past that, gosh, I wish I wouldn't have done that. But it's such a learning point too. But it's getting over yourself to realize it's a learning point and not something that just, happened to you, that you were actually progressing through your life.
So what's the lessons that you teach your kids?
Gosh, my biggest thing for them is I want them to be who they are. They're so different. And I feel like the generation I grew up in, it was like, you don't have a choice. You're doing this, this, and this. And so I really want my kids to just be and learn who they are. If they want to go travel for a year, I want them to do that. I want them to be so immersed in culture and the world and everybody's, what everybody brings to the table. So I really try to allow them to pursue their gifts. I think it's really learning what each of your individual kids' gifts are and really pushing them towards their gifts and not stopping them. Our little guy's creative. Our older one is like, the makeup queen. She's so great with her makeup, and it's like allowing her to explore that in the future and, you know, make a living doing that. That's okay.
Yeah. Well, it goes back into, you don't have to prove, when you have parents or role models that teach the children, the youth of today, and people, and even older people now, it's okay, just be you. You don't have to prove yourself. And the more they do that, and I love some of the younger people now, it's like there's a different era, it's a different culture. They're like, why would I? They just are who they are, right? They have so much to teach us.
Oh my gosh, totally. I'll look at my daughter's friends, and because they all like sleep over here, and it's like, I love that they're just so authentically themselves, and they don't care, like even from their clothes to, you know, they're just so creative. I see such creativity from this generation because they don't care. They're just, this is who I am. And I love that statement. It's like, I am what? I am this. I'm bold. I am a badass. I am strong. I am all the I am statements. It's like, if, gosh, this generation, my generation, so much slower to get that than the younger generation behind us.
But it was a different era.
It was.
And we had to follow what we thought we had to follow, a certain path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm definitely all over the path. I mean, like I look back and it's like, yeah, I kind of followed the path, but then I don't know, I'm like a little all over the place. And that's okay.
It is. It is. And you know, when you take the mask off, and you said authenticity, and to know that, you know, one day, like today, if it wasn't a good day, it's okay, but it doesn't define who you are tomorrow.
Right.
It's to lean in and say, all right, so what now? What am I feeling? What do I need? How do I shift? How do I pivot? But it all has to come back to what you were talking about, the health and wellness on the inside.
Yeah.
Because only then can you ever create the health and wellness on the outside.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And it's little things to help you get there. It's not huge. I think people think they have to go from 0 to 100 to be healthy and have a clean mental, you know, picture in their head. But really, it's just little things every day. Adopting one nice behavior, you know, a week makes a difference. So, you know, adding some color and some vegetables and fruit to your plate, just adding in good things every single day makes a difference. You don't have to do all at once. We don't have to go down to 1,000 calories and cut out everything. It's never going to be sustainable. So it's really just adding goodness into our life in all aspects that make us healthy and well.
Well, you know, and that's another thing. I look at some of your Insta posts and your Facebook, and you'll cook just amazing, clean. There's different things. But at the same time, there's a perception of a lot of people that in order to be healthy or to look fit, you have to be a certain way. So how can someone start with where they're at if they're not liking their body image?
I think it's just starting with breakfast, for instance. Make a change to your breakfast Monday through Friday. Add in some nutrients, you know, add a spinach smoothie in, or added some fruits and vegetables onto your plate while you're eating your coffee or whatnot. You don't have to do it all at once. Just start with breakfast and do that for a week or two, and then add some different things to your lunch. Maybe add salads instead of sandwiches, and just little by little creating a morning practice of gratitude and journaling and meditation. But it doesn't have to be everything. I think in our head, we think it's got to be perfect. It's got to be
all or nothing, right?
Yeah, all or nothing. And that's why people rebound so much. It's like, yeah, they lose 20 pounds, but then they gain 30 back because it hasn't been a lifestyle change. It's just a diet. So it's really changing your whole lifestyle. Things that trigger you to eat poorly. Chips and salsa are my favorite thing in the entire world.
It's not chocolate?
No, like I could go for chips and salsa all day long. Anything spicy, I love. But it's okay to eat that, but I don't need to have that every day.
Balance,
yeah.
I have Misty. She says, all I can say is, wow, I was meant to hear this exact message today. Thank you both. I've been struggling with toxic perfectionism, both in my career and my nutrition, more like lack thereof to an extreme level. And my soul has been screaming at me to leave corporate America and become a yoga instructor for years. I am finally ready to listen to my soul and follow my heart. Thanks to this time of being still with myself in quarantine, journaling, praying, meditating, and my gratitude practice. What advice do you have for me choosing to make a massive career change? I am both excited and scared, but it is time for me to do what I want to do for me, not seeking the approval or expectations of others, family, society.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yes, Misty, go, jump. No, I know it's easier said than done, especially financially, like just to jump into a whole different career. But I think just little day at a time, start working your way towards that yoga instructor. Stephen Furtick, one of my favorite pastors, has a quote. It's called, "The greatest enemy of your peace may be your expectation of perfection." And it's so true. Like if we're trying to be perfect in what we're doing, we're robbing ourselves of our own peace. So go for it, Misty. I love that. I am actually doing a Be Well yoga, cancer recovery yoga practice or yoga training right now. I'm in the middle of it. And it's been very interesting on the data with cancer and stress, all this topic that keeps coming. So right now in the middle of that, I'm like definitely pro, let's try to figure out how to get stress out of your life so we're healthy in that respect too. So good job, Misty. I'm proud of you.
Yeah. Well, and you have to start somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. And it's taking the class, it's getting the certification. So many times people just like jump and they think it's all or nothing, like we were just saying, but there can be a blend. You set yourself up for success and then you jump. Definitely.
Yeah. Definitely. Start doing it on the weekends and then try to reduce your work hours and just, like you said, taking it slowly. I think we feel like we do something, we have to do it now, but it's okay. What about giving yourself a year goal to get out of there?
That's awesome. She said, thank you.
Aw.
So talk about, just real quick before we end, talk about the importance of a support group. How do you, especially surrounding yourself with people who believe in your dream? Because I'm sure there are people that mean well, and it's usually a lot of times our family, some people who are closest to us are like, they put the brakes on us.
Yeah. No, I think it's, the support group is everything. I mean, my husband is definitely my biggest cheerleader. When I was trying out for the canine position, he was the one that built me 80-pound sandbags, and he would spot me in the backyard, putting these bags of sand up on top of the 6-foot wall. So he for sure has been, and he goes with all my crazy dreams. Like this poor guy, like every day I'll come home and I'm like, what if I do this? And he's just like, what the heck are you doing now? Like he's learned to deal with me over the last 15 years. But I have some best girlfriends. We call ourselves the Calm Girls. And it's like, these girls have been with me for a decade, and we've all had so much hurt that we've been able to help each other through. And I adore them. And I feel like if you have a support group, it's everything. We were talking earlier, having a church group, a small group of women that you can be so vulnerable with and not judged. And I think that's what's really missing, is people don't have a real connection with people to be vulnerable with. I feel like it's better out than in. So if you are getting out what is like brewing inside you, there's so much healing just in that. So I encourage everybody to find some type of support group that you can just be honest with, that can push you up that mountain. And sometimes with my girls, like one of us has having a great day and the other 3 are struggling. So it's a bigger load to push up that hill, but then some days it's just one and you got 3 people behind you pushing. So it's just really finding people to encourage you, to motivate you, and help you grow.
I love that you have a Calm group. Years ago, I had a group called the Broad Squad.
Ooh, yeah.
And we did the same thing. It's just like we would get together and we would just not only just support, but we would challenge each other.
Yeah.
And if someone got in a place of an excuse, or we would just call them out. Yeah. And the action that we took, there's so much power in a support group, like-minded people who will help you continue to move that dial and not let you get comfortable.
For sure. And I think you need someone who's going to challenge you, for sure. And I have the people all around me, which I love, because they don't let me rest on my laurels. It's like, nope, get up. You're better than that. Don't, you can have your moment, feel it, and then let's step forward.
But it's so important that we actually are okay with feeling the moment. A lot of times people think, well, strong people, that we should just push past it, no, it's okay to feel what we're feeling.
Yeah.
and then move forward. As
Yeah.
long as it doesn't keep us stuck. It looks like there's a question here. Hang on. So Katie, I'm going to bring you in. Oops. She has a comment that she would like to make. All right. So she said, you are on fire. Such a great and encouraging conversation. And she's one of your support people too.
She is. I love her to death. Yeah. She's definitely.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to.
Fire.
She is fire. I am actually going to, the last feedback is just feedback here. So I'm going to launch it. If you would like to connect with Lindsay, and I'm putting you on the spot because I know who you are, connect on that, and then I'll make sure that the two of you get to connect. And as we get ready, I just want to make sure I'm not missing anyone. There we go. You're such a badass. And I can say that, you know, I just remember in bold, I was like, holy cow, like this little package is like such a dynamite, ready to change this world. And Lindsay, you are. And I just thank you for just your truth and for being willing to be authentic and for having the courage years ago to say, I'm done with this. And it's time for me to do something else, because so many times people get stuck and what they think they need to be, and they don't make the transition, and you had enough courage to make that transition.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I love you. Thank you for always supporting me and helping me be a badass.
Aw, my pleasure. Well, I'll talk to you later. And for those of you who are watching, next Tuesday, we have Kate MacArthur. And have an amazing week. And let's pray that all this smoke goes away from Washington, California, and Oregon. And all the rest of the states. All right. Bye for now, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah, thank you. I love you, Mary. Have a great
Love
day.
you too.